Thanks again for tuning in, guys. So today we'll be talking about the Kashmir province and what's been happening over the past week in the Indian subcontinent. There's actually been some big news on August 5th with India moving to scrap Article 370 from the Constitution of India, and they introduced a bill to divide the area into two union territories, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. So don't be confused with the whole region of Kashmir. India is not seizing the Pakistani administered northern area where most of the Muslims live. But anyway, there are a lot of Muslims that live in the area that India is annexing. So there was a line of control that was created after the partition that separates the Pakistani administered territories in the west and north, respectively, with the Indian administered territories in the south and east. The Kashmir province, it's obviously been a long contested region with Pakistan, India, and China having grasps in the area since 1947 after the partition of British India. It's definitely worth noting that Pakistan and India have nuclear warheads and they hate each other. So we definitely need to, take this situation with delicate care. The entire area of Kashmir itself is mostly Muslim, but Hindu comes in as a close second. And as for the region that's under Indian control, Jammu and Kashmir, the state has been administered with special status since 1947. In contrast with most other states of India, Jammu and Kashmir, it had its own constitution, had its own flag, and own administrative autonomy. So this is different than any other region. Indian citizens from other states actually couldn't buy any land or properties in Jammu and Kashmir. So what the Pakistanis and Muslims fear is somewhat of not an ethnic cleansing, but more like a religious cleansing of them pushing more Hindus into the region and kind of forcing the Muslims out, which makes sense. I can understand where they're coming from. But anyway, Jammu and Kashmir, it has three distinct areas: the Hindu majority Jammu region, Muslim majority Kashmir Valley, and Buddhist majority Ladakh. So Ladakh is obviously close to China. It's in the east, so that's why it's mostly Buddhist. And violence and unrest really have persisted in the Indian-administered Muslim majority areas. Go figure. Following a dispute in 1987 with a state election, an insurgency erupted, and it's been festering ever since then in protest over their autonomy and rights. So in 2014, the Bharatiya Janata Party came to power. So that's Modi's party. That's the right-wing nationalist Hindu party. So you can see why they would get along with Trump. And Modi would get along with Trump since they're nationalists and right-wing. They're conservative. So it's one of the two largest parties in India right now. They can basically, I would say, their push to repeal Article 370, it was basically what they were running on in the past election. So really important for them to get this done, and this was kind of predicted. But anyway, at the same time, they passed a reorganization bill, which would reconstitute the state of Jammu and Kashmir into two union territories, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. So in the build-up to the announcement, the government of India increased security in preparation of insurgency, which they're probably right in doing, kind of, but they went about it in a wrong way. They cut internet access. They placed regional leaders under house arrest. They told tourists and students and pilgrims to leave the area completely. And they announced a curfew and added even more troops. They already had around 500,000 troops there, and they added already even more. So the problem with all this is both Pakistan and India feel that they have a right to the entirety of the region. And like I mentioned, they have nuclear warheads. So this is kind of a, serious situation. We need to make sure it doesn't get escalated. And in 1948, this all really stemmed from this vote. Basically, the United Nations called for a plebiscite or a vote for all the electorate to decide which country they would like to join. And since Kashmir was a Muslim majority area, the Indians feared that, obviously they would want to join Pakistan, so they basically blocked the vote. And as a result, India rule in Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh have not really been so smooth ever since they felt wronged. There's actually been 2 wars that India and Pakistan have fought over the region ever since. India contends that the insurgency that basically started in 1987 was largely started by the Afghani Mujahideen, which entered the Kashmir Valley following the end of the Soviet-Afghani War, and that Pakistan is, as a result, harboring many additional Muslim terrorists in their administered northern region. So they're probably right in assuming this. There's definitely some Taliban that are in the Pakistani parliament right now, so that's definitely worth noting. It's also worth noting that the Mujahideen was actually funded by the U.S. during the 1970s and 80s. If you recall that one Tom Hanks movie, Charlie Wilson's War, I think it came out in like 2006. That's actually about how we started funding the Mujahideen, and they actually later became the Taliban. Well, at least elements of them did. So it kind of ended up backfiring on the United States, and we hoped that funding the Mujahideen, they would be able to defeat the Soviets and kind of embarrass them on the world scene, which it did work. But in turn, with the CIA helping the Mujahideen in training, digging tunnels for them, teaching them how to use advanced weapons, we kind of created our own monster in Afghanistan. But anyway, back to Jammu and Kashmir. There's been bombings, shootings in response to India's occupation, and India, as a result, increased security, which is expected. The Indian government actually arrests suspects, and then they torture them brutally. There's claims, actually, where they force them to eat their own body parts and stuff like that. Real crazy stuff. So essentially, then it becomes a vicious cycle where, one side hates the other more than the other, and then it just keeps going around and around. So to make matters worse, water is actually running low in the area. So we'll see what happens moving forward, just from an environmental standpoint too. So what's Trump to do with all this? What's he going to do? So it's just worth noting that India, quote unquote, annexed the mostly Hindu and Buddhist areas, but many Muslims still live in the area that was annexed. So, obviously the Pakistanis want to help the Muslims in that area, and the Indians are not budging. So, Indian Americans are obviously pushing for our administration to support Modi in abolishing Article 370. Historically, we've been more aligned with Pakistan since India was more aligned with the USSR. President Eisenhower actually sold Pakistan nuclear secrets and pushed us closer and paved the way for the Pakistani nuclear program to be created. So the last president to actually intervene in the Kashmir province was Bill Clinton, who helped bring an end to the brief Kargil War between India and Pakistan in Kashmir in 1999. But ever since then, the U.S. hasn't really done much. But Trump has essentially been playing both sides throughout his presidency. He did actually revoke all foreign aid to Pakistan in 2017. This was done as punishment for giving sanctuary to the Taliban and other Islamist militant groups operating in Afghanistan. But keep in mind, Osama bin Laden was hiding in Islamabad for many years with no problems. So clearly the Pakistanis knew, or at least some people knew in the administration there, that he was being safely harbored there. So, of course, though, we want peace and prosperity in the whole region, but it's extremely hard when each side is really divided by religion. So Trump might have to mediate this crisis as a result. There was a bilateral agreement that only India and Pakistan could negotiate on Kashmir, but it really does look like Trump is going to have to step in anyway. So just remember that I said that China has a stake in Kashmir as well, and China is a close ally of Pakistan. So Trump must tread lightly here. This really does seem like perfect timing for him, though. So, violence returned earlier this year to the region. India launched an airstrike in Pakistani territory in retaliation for a terror attack for which it naturally blamed Pakistan. A dogfight between Pakistani and Indian fighter jets led to a diplomatic standoff when Pakistan captured the Indian pilot. I'm sure many of you didn't know that. The airstrikes didn't kill anyone, but Pakistan handed the pilot back to India without incident, which was surprising and very lucky to say. India has been reestablishing itself in the region clearly. Kashmir could be on a warpath. That's what I'm fearing. And the good news is that Trump has a good chemistry, it seems, with both leaders, Khan and Modi. So basically, Trump needs to ask himself, who do we see as a critical ally in the region moving forward in the 21st century? And at this moment, it seems like we can still work with both sides if possible. But if we had to choose, I would lean more on India, given the fact that we both can agree that Islamic terrorism is a big threat to both of our countries. So, I'll be sure to keep you guys updated on any progress with India's increased security in the region. And, thanks again for tuning in. So I'll see you guys next time.